the lab. Today I'm going to be looking at this old scope. I intend this to be my general purpose scope for use on all the other projects that I want to work on. Now, but before I can use it for that, I need to do some work because it isn't in good condition at the moment. It's got a lot of dents and dings, cosmetic problems, and it has a power on problem. It shows a bunch of calibrations that seem to go on for quite a while every time it's powered on, and it makes me think that there must be a failed battery in there somewhere. So I need to look for that, into replacing it, and then after the general tidy up, hopefully I'll have a fully working scope. Let's take a look. These screw heads are all stripped, so I think it's had the lid off, I guess, for calibration quite a few times in its life. Now, when I first saw this scope, I assumed it was a CRT type display, because the earlier Gould scopes, digital ones, had those. But it appears that I was wrong. This must be a very early LCD. And inside the space where I thought that CRT would sit is an additional circuit board. Cable going to the display, and a cable going, two cables going to the back. So I don't know if that is just a display or whether it's something else. But, yeah, okay. So I found the battery. I don't even know whether I can get my phone low enough down to show you where it is. It's way under this power supply right at the back. No, you can't see it from there. So I need to get this power supply out, or I need to slide the circuit board out. And the problem I have here, I can't help thinking that removing all of this front piece to get the circuit board to slide is going to be quite a job. And I certainly don't want to be taking a soldering iron to anything, because I'm scared about upsetting factory calibration if I mess with that. So I think I'm going to have to find a way of getting the power supply out. A lot of time has passed, but I'm in. I didn't film my efforts as I was too busy swearing at it, but I did have to remove the cover off the power supply to get to the fixings, and then break the plastic mounts as they had aged and welded themselves to the screws. And I also had to partly dismantle the power supply to release it from the back of the case. Anyway, now we can see the battery, and as suspected, it has failed and it's leaking. Now, obviously I can't leave it in this state because it's going to leak onto the board, and then we'll end up with a lot worse problem. I'm getting 0.3 of a volt, and that's a 2.6 volt battery. Okay, well, cleaned up. And I think it looks like the only corrosion is right down on the pin. Now I also have a dodgy power switch. You see how slow that is, and it gets stuck and won't come back, and you have to pull it. It's gummed up, so I'm going to have to look at that. And since my phone decided not to record the work I did on the switch, all I can do is report that it's now working, though I did have to take the body of the switch apart in order to clean it properly. Okay, it's a week later, and I need to replace this part with the modern equivalent, which is this here. As you can see, it's labelled up the same. It's a Varta 2.6 volts. It has a slightly higher capacity. It's also an NIMH, and the old one's NICAD, but that isn't a problem. They can just be swapped in. And I think I'm going to have to work from the top side because the solder joints that I need to reach are not all accessible. There's one of them, and the others are under here. Yeah, so I'm going to work from the top. Okay, so I think a bit of a clean up and we'll be good to go. So as you can probably make out, I need to do some trimming of these legs. There's a big metal shield in the way under the circuit board, and I can't have those longer legs connecting with that shield because that would be very bad. So I'm going to cut those down, and then I'm going to clean up the lock on the circuit board. And then I'm ready to solder them back. Okay, so I've cleaned up the area. I don't believe I need to mess about with something to neutralise the acid because all I can see is a couple of divots in the circuit board surface next to this pre-plated hole. I'm not seeing that as having got anywhere near this trace. That's the only one that would be of concern. So I'm going to leave that alone. New battery trimmed up is going in. Like so. I just need to solder it up. That looks good on this side. I'm going to go and take a look on the other side. Okay, this is one of the plus side solder joints. To be honest, it looks a bit rough and ready. I think I'm going to just touch that one up. I can't reach the others very easily. This is the minus, the negative side, and the other plus is way down here somewhere. Okay, just a quickie. I'm going to measure across the battery like so. 3.75 volts coming off that battery. We had about a tenth of that with the old one. With the electrical work completed, I now need to refit the power supply, and I have to deal with those annoying plastic mountings. The top half of this has come off whole. I might be able to reuse that when I rebuild. Alright, now then, this is where I'm up to. I have the power supply box back in place, and I have a nut and bolt there, and there, holding it in, and I did manage to get the original plastic spacers under it, so that here, I can just about make out here the plastic spacer. So that's all as it was, apart from the metal nuts. There was one here as well, but I don't see the point. Once I've got the main case screwed together, that's pointless. So I'm just fixing up the wires and all the components that go in that box, and then I'm going to screw the power supply together, and we can finish rebuilding it and test it. With that done, I struggled to get the lid on, so I had to resort to a bit of panel beating to straighten out the dents. So while I was working on the electrics, I discovered another little problem, which I didn't mention during that part of the video because I didn't know what to do about it, but I've had a rethink and I've found a solution. These plastic lugs were broken off, which meant that the screws weren't holding was flopping forward. And then, as you can see, my fix involved cutting some pieces of sheet metal. You could use the side of a tin can, anything really. These are cut with a T-shaped piece with enough flat area to super glue down solidly, and with a hole where the screw needs to go. And that screw position is the only difficult part. You've got to get the alignment right, and it's not easy when there's no plastic left to see where the hole was. Then it goes on. Oh, and I should also mention this screen cover has foam surrounding it. This is to keep dust out, and it's gone sticky and yucky, and I need to look for something to replace that with. For the moment, that is staying in place. So now, as you can see, we just put a screw in. These screws now pass through the new metal piece. And the trick here is to turn the screw until you feel it stop. Don't be over tightening. There. There's really no need to tighten them because it will hold perfectly well. You simply need to get the screw low enough to clear the top of the case. And that's it. There are two more screws under here which I'll put back. And that's it. That's now solid. As good as new, in fact better. See, I will disappear, put the lid on. So now when I power on, you can see that it's going straight to the scope traces without all that calibration nonsense. And this scope also has a plotter, like many Gould scopes, but unfortunately, even if the plotter itself is working, you won't be able to get the pens anymore. Mine are all dried up, and so will any new old stock you might find. As there's no other way to extract a copy of the screen on this scope, I'll be taking photos whenever I need a record. very little in the way of ink on the paper. At last, I have a working scope for the lab. The downside is it's huge, and I know I'm going to struggle for space on the bench. Ideally I'd like a modern small one, but for the moment this one will have to do. I'll be covering lab equipment basics in the near future, including this scope, so if you're a beginner look out for that. Otherwise stay tuned as there's more to come.